What are the filters that you're putting on your apps?
Me personally?
Yeah. Oh.
Is that what you're asking?
Actually, yeah, I am curious. What are the filters?
Wait, no, ask again.
Yeah. What filters are you putting on your app?
Wait, are you actually asking me?
I don't know. I'm Maya-Lane.
And I'm Michael, and we're on the grad school journey to becoming licensed therapists.
Come with us to class as we discuss and dissect all we can learn about mental health, relationships, therapy techniques, and everything in between.
With your two favorite therapists in training, this is Therapy in Progress.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Maya-Lane.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Quick turnaround this week.
Yeah, this was a tight one.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 5.
Yeah. We had a little bit of audio quality issues the last time we filmed this one, so
yes.
We're doing it again, but we're a little older, a little wiser, so
exactly.
We can bring a little bit more technological and informative content.
And we're also sitting on opposite sides now, so everything's different.
Everything's different.
I feel like, who are you even?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know this side of your face.
I know. It's my bad side, I'm sorry. How was your week?
It's been good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm one of the classes that I'm taking this term is couple and family therapy.
Ooh, I am not in that one yet.
We have 2 parts of it, so I'm in part 1.
Okay.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating class. I'm really excited for you to take it eventually. Right now, our professor is telling us a little bit about how couples come together. Mm-hmm. So we're studying that process. So a little bit about dating, and this episode is going to be about modern dating, mm-hmm. online dating. And one of the things that we're running into, one of the problems people are having is that we all kind of see each other as ourselves as satellites. We're one individual. We're not seeing ourselves as a collective.
Interesting. So like a satellite, like alone floating in the context of everything else instead of like connected?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to get 2 satellites to come together and fuse themselves. And that's really challenging if you've been a satellite for so long and now all of a sudden you have to take in somebody else's needs and expectations and navigating all of that. It becomes a lot more challenging.
Yeah. What's the solution?
Well, we'll get into that today.
Okay, perfect. We'll get some answers. Just really quick, for those of you who might be just joining us, hopping in right here, this is Therapy in Progress.
Yes.
We are 2 grad students going into the field of psychology and therapy, and we're learning a whole bunch of really cool things, and we're glad to have you here listening.
Yeah, so we're bringing you into the classroom with us so that we can discuss all things mental health.
Yes, very excited. So today we are talking about
modern dating.
Modern dating, which means what exactly?
So today we have this new digital landscape that is really unprecedented. We've never seen it at this scale before. So dating is part of that process. We have all these dating apps, dating websites, and we have social media, and it makes the landscape a little bit more confusing.
Yeah.
So dating was already really hard, and now we get these extra little barriers in there.
Yeah, more than ever, life has kind of moved online, not just in a dating context, which is what we'll be talking about today, but kind of all areas of life.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of human interaction and connection and stuff.
And it's becoming progressively more and more online, especially with AI coming onto into the game as well.
Yeah. Last semester, I did a presentation in one of my classes on the effects of social media on adolescents. And one of the biggest things that was kind of impressed upon me when I was doing my research is how all of this is still such in its infancy that we don't really know yet. Like, all of this is so new. These are really the first generations that are dealing with that online human connection thing, so we don't really know what the long-term effects are going to be yet.
Yeah.
So it's a really new field of study, and it's really interesting to kind of see how everything's changing.
Yeah, because you and I, we grew up like half online.
Yeah, we were kind of the last like transitional generation. We went online in like middle school, I want to say. Yeah, I got my first cell phone, I think, in like 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we had like Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook.
Yes. Well, right? No, I had one of those like flip phone, like where to like type you, it was like 999-3388 or whatever, you know, when you had to like do the things.
Yeah.
We also had like the family computer in the...
Sorry, can I just say, Gen Z has no idea what you just said.
Okay.
333-999.
Okay. And if you don't know what that means, it means that, like, before you had a keyboard on your phone, you only had the numbers, and so each number had 3 letters associated with it. So it's like if you pressed 1, that was A. If you pressed 1 twice, that was B. If you pressed 1 3 times, that was C. We also had like the family computer in the living room that we all shared, the desktop. So things have changed really rapidly.
They have.
Yeah.
Now we all have little tiny computers in our pockets all the time.
Constantly.
We're just going between small screen, medium screen, and big screen. Our cell phone, our computer, and our TV.
Oh my God, that's so true. I always... I have this conversation with, like, my parents even, because they're big Kindle people, and they love reading their books on their Kindle, and I refuse, because I'm like, reading is one of the few things we have left that doesn't have to be technological. I'm not going to choose to do that on a screen. I'm going to hold a book and do it on a book. It's like, the things that I am able to do without technology, I really want to, because that feels so rare these days.
Yeah. I love that. I have Kindle Unlimited.
Good for you. I'm proud of you. Okay, so take us into online dating and modern dating. What do we want to talk about today?
So I kind of want to get into 3 different topics today. I want to talk about the history of online dating and the rise of it, how it came to be so prevalent in our lives. Then I want to talk about the potential psychological and social issues associated with it. So we're getting into the swipe culture and how attachment styles and things like that kind of play into it.
Love it.
And then finally, we'll get into solutions and tips for navigating this new digital dating landscape.
Perfect. I do want to say, having these kinds of conversations, we're going to be talking about a lot of the issues that can arise with online dating. I don't want that to seem like we are doing this through a negative lens. I have a lot of people in my own life who have met long-term significant others, wonderful relationships through dating apps.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I was actually reading... there's this great article from the Pew Research Center on online dating, and they're talking about how really the opinions are split pretty much 50-50 on if people have had good experiences or not.
Right.
So if you are one of the half of people that have had a good experience, that's amazing.
Yes.
What this episode is going to be talking about is if you are in that half of people who have been struggling with it, or if you feel that it's getting you down, or you're getting burnt out, this is what that's talking about. So it's... in no way meant to demonize online dating or invalidate any of those amazing connections or anything. But if you are somebody who's been struggling with it, this is going to be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah. There's something to be said about the fact that online dating has created more accessibility.
Yeah.
We have more options than we have ever had before. It's just a matter of how we approach it and the lens that we're using when we are looking for these connections online.
Yeah.
Also, just a little disclaimer. This conversation is going to be pretty heteronormative, and that's just because of the nature of the topic.
Yeah, when we were prepping and looking into the research, we did find that as a group, queer communities actually tend to be more satisfied on dating apps.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about some of the issues people face and some of the difficulties, it just makes more sense that we'll be focusing on a more heterosexual dating app experience.
Yeah. So with all that being said, let's get started.
Can I start with a quick stat?
Please.
The Pew Research Center says that adults in the U.S. today, 3 out of 10, so about 30% of people have used online dating, either apps or websites, and that number gets even larger when it's people under 30. That rises to about half. About 50% of people under 30 have used dating apps at some point.
Wow.
So it's a widespread thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how did we get here?
Tell me.
So, yes, we have this access, these little computers in our phone that connects us to the entire world. That's amazing. It's incredible. But what makes us turn to these online formats so often as opposed to just meeting someone casually through friends or just going out and meeting somebody at a bar or somewhere external? And this really comes down to how our current society is just really on their mindset grindset. Everyone is working a lot, and there aren't really these spaces in between. So you go to work and then you go home. Maybe you'll go out with some friends once in a while, but when you're going out with your friends, you're not really looking to find a romantic connection necessarily.
Yeah. There's this concept of a third place that has been lacking. That kind of refers to a place other than home or work where people go just to socialize and experience human connection.
Yeah.
So that still exists, but the number of people who experience that has definitely gone down.
Yeah.
So we're talking a regular place, whether that is a community center or a gym or a coffee shop, something. People these days in larger numbers are going to work and going home.
Yeah. So we go to work, we go home, we might go to one of these third places. And when we do, oftentimes it's really hard to approach people because you're like, I don't know if people want to be approached. And for guys specifically, because they tend to be the pursuers, it's like, I don't want to come across creepy. I don't want to infringe on girls' night.
Or aggressive.
Or I don't want to be aggressive.
Yeah.
That's a huge component of it too.
Yeah.
Especially because at the gym, for example, like a lot of times online girls are like, I just want to go to the gym and I don't want to be bothered by any guys. Don't talk to me in the gym. And then guys are like, okay, but like, what if I have a crush on you? How do I talk to you?
Because then at the same time, there is that narrative and that pressure of like, you got to be bold and walk up to the person and just tell them, tell the girl what you think. And it's like, how do you navigate the line between those two realities?
Yeah. It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's extremely challenging.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like there's this weird double standard, and I don't even know what the double standard is regarding, but it feels like a crapshoot when a man approaches a woman. It's like a 50-50. Is this going to be received well and flattering, or is this going to be like, oh my God, leave me alone, like, I want to go somewhere without being hit on?
Yeah.
So it's like, not to be like boohoo, guys have it so tough, but it's hard to know what is appropriate in any given situation. Is it going to be well received or is it not?
I don't think that's boo-hoo. I think that that's legitimate concern.
Yeah, thank you, Maya-Lan.
Yes, because there is that balance that you have to strike between like, I want to respect this person's right to be in their own space and not be bothered. And at the same time, I think they're cute and maybe I just want to ask for their number and I'm trying to be respectful, but I want to balance both of these things. And that's not an easy task. That's almost an impossible task because you can't know.
And not to mention, we're just talking about this in a vacuum. Layer on top of it, just the human emotion of like the vulnerability and fear of rejection that comes with approaching someone and putting yourself out there like that.
Terrifying.
People always say, why am I, so afraid of rejection? Because biologically, going back to our caveman days, rejection means you die. Rejection from fellow humans means you are left behind from the tribe and you die. And we have carried that into our, like, the evolution is still there in our bones where it is so terrifying and so vulnerable to put yourself in a position to be rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With all of this in mind, going online it has more convenience and it has less of the gravity of that rejection that you're talking about.
Because you can kind of hide a little bit.
Yes, because it doesn't feel as personal. It's a lot more difficult to be in front of somebody and take that face on rejection, like, no, I'm not interested, versus going online and just getting ghosted. It's like, oh, well, I just didn't get a response.
And not only that, but there's almost a safety in an online dating site where you know that people are there to pursue that kind of thing. So it feels safer instead of, I'm going to go up to somebody in public and maybe this isn't even on their, maybe they're taken. If you see somebody on a dating app, you're kind of both there knowing that this is what it's about, and you're right. It's a lot easier to hide behind the even though it's you and your face and your profile, it feels less vulnerable.
It does.
So is that why you're saying you think that people kind of as a large group have migrated into this kind of convenient online dating culture?
I think it's all of that. I think it's the convenience. I think that it feels less personal. So I think for those reasons, people are moving online because it just feels safer and it seems easier.
And there's a reason that half of people under 30 have used dating apps.
Yes.
There you go.
There's a reason. And there's many reasons that I'm sure I'm leaving a million things out.
Yeah.
But on top of this, we have this almost dilemma between convenience and quality.
Ooh.
So dating apps, yes, they offer the convenience, but they might sacrifice that deeper connection. So while it gives you that little bit of safety that, the rejection isn't going to sting as much, it is less personal. It's harder to connect with people on a different level because you are meeting digitally versus face-to-face. You're going to automatically form deeper connections.
And the kind of impetus for two people becoming connected is so different. I talk about this with friends who are much older than me. They say back before dating apps, by the time two people ended up together, a lot of the time they had known each other a long time and they kind of slowly, gradually built this connection.
Yes.
On dating apps, it is an instant yes or no. It's based on pretty, yes, there's prompts and there is descriptions, but let's be real. It's about physical attraction.
Yeah.
So there's this instant yes or no, swipe right or swipe left.
Yeah.
So just the kind of building of the connection is so much different than it used to be in more gradual times before this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I recently was watching my friend on Hinge, and I was like, can I just like see what is your process? And the way she was just swiping through, she was looking at these guys for like less than 5 seconds. And next, next, next.
Oftentimes it's like less than a second.
It was so fast.
It'll
I
be
was
like a reflexive response, just yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no, you know.
That's a person. That's
Ooh.
a whole person. And you just like completely rejected them because.
And there's such a difference, and I'm sure you're about to get into this, but when you have that vast net of possibilities, your standards are so much different than if you were in class with someone. I've even noticed it with myself. It's like my bar of interest when I'm actually in person with a group of people, I notice people so much differently than I would in the context of 500 profiles on a dating app.
Yeah.
We just process things differently, right?
Yeah. So having so many options can actually make dating more overwhelming.
Yeah, I think a common thing that people report is a feeling of overwhelm. Particularly, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, when we get into it, the difference that men versus women experience on these apps.
There's a major discrepancy between the amount of engagement men are getting and women are getting. And I'm talking more in like heteronormative terms, but men get a lot less interaction than women do. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think one of the many contributing factors is that women often don't pursue. So they wait because they're getting so much interaction. They're like, I don't have to send a message to this guy. And so guys aren't getting anything from girls initially, but they're just kind of like casting a wide net. Like,
Sure.
Somebody please respond to me.
Again, this article that I'm referencing from the Pew Research Center, they said that gay men specifically were actually more satisfied as a group with dating app experiences because just the communication back and forth, the number of matches and hits back and forth was just more successful in that arena.
Yeah.
So, but if we're talking about straight men and straight women pursuing each other, then yes, what you're saying, that discrepancy is huge. I think they said that over 50%, 50% of female activity and likes and interactions on these apps go to male profiles of like 10 or 15% of the male profiles.
Yeah.
So that huge number of responses goes to a very small number of male profiles.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting discrepancy because it is not true in the other direction.
Right. And I think that that's a really good thing to point out because I think this is a specific complaint a lot of people have about dating apps specifically. Like, why are only the top 10, 15% of men, quote unquote, getting all these women to flock to them and not any of the other guys, like as though that's a unique problem for dating apps. But you could see that just in real life dating.
So it's not unique to dating apps, but it is highlighted ever more evidently on dating apps. So what does that do to the psyche of somebody who is in the 85% that is not getting that engagement or not seeing their time on dating apps bearing the fruit that maybe they would want it to?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a huge topic. It could be extremely discouraging. It can affect your self-concept, especially if it's not something that you've worked on before. And it can affect your confidence, not just in terms of online dating, but also just like in day-to-day life. But we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next episode, which is on men's mental health.
Totally.
But there's something really to be said about the fact that we make these such quick judgments on people just based off of, 1.5 seconds that we saw them on an app with like some pictures and maybe a little blurb.
Yeah, because I know, and I can just say this like anecdotally, I've had people in my life as like friends who I've known for a very, very long time, platonically, who then something turns and you start seeing somebody in a way that you hadn't before.
Right.
And you start realizing a deeper connection or that something else is there. That can be years in the making before that spark fires.
Right.
So compare that to what you just said, less than a second.
And I know even for myself, I've dated somebody who, if I had seen them just on a dating app on paper, I would have swiped no. But I was able to have like a really beautiful, really amazing relationship with that person. And so I just think it would have been so awful if I had just like seen him on a dating app, swipe no.
So perhaps, again, this is, for listeners who have been struggling in this arena, maybe there the answer, so to speak, is a little bit more deliberate swiping and a little bit less of those knee-jerk instant reactions and giving, I guess, expanding your bar of interest. Try to imagine that profile as somebody in real life, in your class, at your work. Take it out of the context of the dating app. Is this somebody that actually you might give a chance to, that you actually might be interested in?
Yeah. I think one thing people have to be mindful of is just what are the filters you're putting on your dating app? Because if you could be eliminating such amazing people just because they don't fit kind of arbitrary ideals that you might have.
Because remember, these dating apps are computers. So if you put 6 foot as your requirement and there's somebody who's 5'11", who's amazing, the computer is not going to spit out that 5'11" person because they're not 6 foot and you put 6 foot.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. Speaking of which, can I soapbox for 1 second?
Please.
We need to keep in mind that these apps and these websites are businesses. They exist to make money.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say they do not exist to find you love.
No.
So they are going to do whatever is in their best interests to turn a profit. So a lot of times what this means, and they've done, obviously no dating app will like publicly release its algorithm or anything, but you know, people have done like third-party analyses and studies and stuff like that. A lot of dating apps, what they will do is that they will learn your type. They will then take your type out of your general dating pool and hide them behind a paywall.
Yep.
So that if you actually want to see profiles that the app knows you specifically will be interested in, you have to pay whatever it is, a subscription, in order to have access to those profiles.
Right.
So that's kind of fucked up.
It's a little bit predatory, just a tiny bit. It is a business and it has a paywall, and there's also a level of gamification.
What does that mean?
Apps. Gamification. So the way that these apps make money, besides having you pay for it, but there's a free version. So they have to be making money off of you somehow. So what they're looking for is your attention and your engagement on the app.
So by gamification, you almost mean the way psychologically, subconsciously, they use bright colors when you get a match. There's sparkles and stars that explode. It's like they make it a very dopamine-heavy experience.
Yes.
To kind of entice you, even if subconsciously, to stay online, to keep using these apps. Because the longer you're there, the more advertisements you see, the more they make money.
Yeah, and they're collecting your data, not to mention. So they are picking up on the people that you're interested in, and they're looking at your demographic information. And this is valuable information for marketers and for businesses who would want to buy your data from.
Does that mean Tinder knows what my McDonald's order is?
They could.
Ugh, damn it.
They could. And then next thing you know, you're on Chrome, you're on Google, and all of a sudden your favorite order just popped up.
Swipe on Tinder at McDonald's near you. Okay, so that gamification absolutely is going to keep you, and it's probably going to exhaust you.
Oh, yeah.
As all social media does, not just dating apps, but, you know, all social media is designed to be, anytime you get engagement, whether that's a comment on a Instagram or a reshare of a story or something, it is a flood of dopamine to keep you coming back for more.
Absolutely, because when you're swiping and you finally get a message from somebody, you're like, oh, somebody likes me. That does something to a person. It's like, oh, they like me. So then you want to respond. You want to stay on longer because you're waiting for the next time somebody messages you or this next time somebody responds.
You know how Hinge's tagline is designed to be deleted? Respectfully, bullshit.
Oh, absolutely bullshit.
They don't want to be deleted because then they're not making money.
Yeah. They want to keep you on the apps for as long as possible.
Right.
So with all that in mind, there are things that we can do to be able to navigate dating in the modern world more effectively and in a much more healthy way.
So again, this is if you are experiencing that fatigue or discouragement or burnout in this place that dating has kind of moved lately. These are some tips or some ideas of how to kind of navigate your relationship with it.
Yeah.
Because I think it can, if you take it at face value as a reflection of like who you are in the world, which isn't fair because these are rather artificial environments.
Yes.
But if you take it at face value, it can do a number on people.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that sense of self and that sense of confidence?
Well, I think that we need to manage our relationship with dating apps and social media at large. Not all of us are great at portraying ourselves online. Not all of us have that skill. I mean, think about your friends on social media, the people that you actually know in real life. Some of them, you know, their personal life is just like not great. They have a lot of struggle, but then you see them online and wow, they have it all going on. They have the perfectly curated pictures. They're traveling, they're doing this and that. Like, they make their lives look incredible, but the reality is they're just a regular person.
I always say about social media, if you are comparing yourself to others based on social media, you are comparing your behind the scenes to their finished product, which is such an unfair comparison to put yourself through.
Oh, completely.
You know? And it's so funny because we all know that this is true. It's like, I know that my social media presence does not reflect my life necessarily. So we know that intellectually, and yet still, somehow, we take other people's online presence as reality.
Yeah.
Even though we know it's not, it still gets in there. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
You know?
So to bring this back into how you interact with your online dating profile and how you're perceiving yourself through that, it's not personal. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just how the apps are designed. It's the algorithm. You have to take into consideration that you might be hidden behind a paywall for some people. We don't know what's going on, and it has nothing to do with who you actually are.
That's such a great, like, CBT way to, cognitive behavioral therapy, way to navigate that. It's like, oh, if I, am not getting likes, maybe it's because you're so everyone's type that you're just hidden behind their paywalls.
You might be.
And they don't have access to you because that's how great you are. Like, for all you know, that's the truth.
You have no idea. There's no way to know.
You just CBT'd a whole generation of people who don't like dating apps. That's great.
Now I think perhaps the most important, setting boundaries and effective communication. We all come to dating apps for different reasons. Some people are looking for something casual. Some people are looking for marriage. So be honest with yourself and with the people that you're interacting with, what your expectations are and how you expect to receive that back.
It might sound obvious, but why?
Well, if you are two people who are looking for completely different things and neither of you acknowledge that, then there's going to be conflict. So let's say...
conflict and wasted time.
And then let's say you meet somebody and the reason you're on the dating apps align and you're talking to them, you're enjoying it. Really set your boundaries with it.
Such as?
Such as, how often do you want to be communicated with? If somebody is hitting you up all day long throughout the day and you're someone who's like, that's a little much for me.
Yeah. So I think that just carries into just day-to-day life as well. Don't be afraid to... I think it's a little different here because people in your day-to-day life you've probably known for longer and built longer relationships with. Somebody you meet on a dating app is kind of... It kind of goes 0 to 60. Yeah. You meet somebody in the context... You match with somebody in the context of a dating app. You're both interested. Suddenly, there's like a romantic connection. Yeah. That's a big leap right there. Yeah. So I think that important communication and boundary setting comes into play earlier and more quickly than it would in other types of relationships. Yeah, absolutely. And it's honestly a better opportunity to be like, this is what I'm looking for. These are my expectations. Let's just put it out there. Hell yeah. Front and forward. And then the person can be like, yeah, I'm down, or nah, this isn't for me. So it almost makes things easier in a way. Totally. But you have to be upfront. If you're not upfront, then everyone's just going to be confused. Last but not least, exploring alternatives. You're someone, you're like, I'm done with the dating apps. I'm over it. What do? I have so many friends who it's like this cycle of like every 4 months. It's like, I deleted all my apps. They're all gone. And then 4 months later, all right, I re-downloaded them and like made new profiles. Okay, I deleted them. It's like it just comes and goes and comes and goes. So if you're in one of those periods of you're taking some time off or you're deleting them or you're taking a break or you're done with them, let's talk about modern dating in this day and age, in this generation. But if someone is taking a break, now we're kind of going off the apps offline. So kind of how to navigate that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are so many shifts in the dating landscape at large. Just on a macro level, culturally, so much has changed just in terms of gender roles and expectations that we have of each other. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Yeah, because in the last many years, there has been such a amazing shift in the landscape of relationships between men and women and calling things out that used to go uncalled out, So these are all really amazing advances and amazing changes. One of the byproducts of that is that things that used to be accepted and expected in the dating world, now people raise their eyebrows at.
Right.
But the problem is the rules are vague and have not quite yet been defined. And as we were talking about early in the episode, you never quite know, is something going to land well? Is it not? Is it, is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to navigate. And it is, it can feel like a risk, speaking from a guy's point of view. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I think that particularly now, because things are being called out, men feel like they have to tiptoe. Like there's this level of like, you need to be confident and you need to just like go out and pursue, put yourself out there, but you also want to be respectful. So you don't always know, like you were saying, how it's going to land.
And let's call a spade a spade. There is, for both men and for women, there is pretty privilege. If a man approaches a woman, that exact same interaction from somebody from a man who's super attractive could be seen as charming and flattering.
Yeah.
That exact same guy, if the woman finds him unattractive, is like aggressive and creepy.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's tough. There's a double standard.
You have to be so self-aware. There's a lot of self-work that needs to be done, and giving yourself some grace that you're probably going to make mistakes, but it's being able to check yourself and knowing like, what was my intention and what was the impact?
So knowing who you are, being self-aware, knowing your intention, knowing your impact on the other person, and also knowing that even in the real world, again, because we're talking about now kind of shifting into when you're off the apps, but also when you're on this, I think is a great sum up for everything.
Yeah.
Dating is a numbers game. And it is a rare and lucky thing when two people line up at the same time and are both interested in the other.
Yeah.
So rejection is not an inherent comment on your worth, on your attractiveness, on your future possibilities.
Right.
So I think as tough as that is, really keeping in mind the fact that you're kind of playing the lottery.
Yeah.
And as frustrating as it can be, it'll hit when it hits. I think that's an important thing for people to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so then just to wrap this up, if you are, as we were talking about, taking a break, even if temporarily, from these apps, what are the alternatives?
Yeah. So we can meet people organically. How do you do that? There's no third spaces. You have to take the initiative.
Make the third space.
You have to make the third space. I know it takes a little extra time. We're all exhausted. We have a million things going on. But join an interest-based group. Let's say you're into rock climbing or hiking.
Did you just pull that out of nowhere? My friend and I literally just started rock climbing again like 2 weeks ago.
Yay. I'm a rock climber. Did I ever tell you that?
Wait, let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, great.
I want to get back into it. This day and age, we're all so busy. We're working. We're going to school. We're exhausted. We have to make the time to make that third space.
You have to make it.
You have to make it.
It's a deliberate...
It's a choice.
It is an effort that, like, it's not just going to fall into your lap. This, at least in this day and age, you have to really engage in that third space.
Yeah. You got to find your interest group. Is that hiking? Is it rock climbing? Is it art? Take a class, maybe. A great place to find people is actually volunteering. It's something that you can do for free. It's something that you can do regularly on the weekends or even just a couple times a month, where you can meet just really cool people.
So I think that's a good, for even people just listening to this, to kind of check in with themselves and say, if you've been frustrating with dating, have you been complacent or have you been putting in the effort? Because it does take that effort to meet people outside of your normal pools. And not to minimize, that can be not only exhausting and expensive, but vulnerable and scary to go jump into a new hobby or into a new group of people.
Yeah.
But do the scary thing. And if it's horrible, you never have to go back.
Yeah.
Or best case scenario, you might meet some amazing people or an amazing person.
Yeah. Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's scary, validated, it's time consuming. It might be expensive, but if it really is important to you to go out and meet somebody and you're not looking to be on the dating apps, you got to go somewhere else. These are the places that we go.
Yeah. Okay. That was a really fun conversation. What are your takeaways? Any last thoughts as we're wrapping this up?
Yes. So dating in the modern age is complicated. Dating in general is complicated, but there are many, many things that we can do to make it a little bit easier and find that genuine connection that we're looking for.
Totally.
If you're listening to this episode and it's making you think of your chronically single friend, maybe send it to them.
Absolutely. If somebody wanted to do that, Mylene, how could they find us?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and on YouTube Podcasts. Our handle is Therapy in Progress on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify Podcasts. On all the socials, we are Therapy in Progress Pod, P-O-D, short for podcast.
Ooh, that's what that means.
Yes. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Join us next week. New episodes every Monday.
If you guys have some tips or tricks or experiences on dating apps, we would love to hear your thoughts and experiences. So make sure you follow us on the socials and give us some comments.
Awesome.
Send us some DMs. Love to hear from you.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.
I'm Mylene.
I'm Michael.
Thank you for coming to class with us.
This has been Therapy in Progress.
See you next week. Bye. Therapy in Progress is produced for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not meant to substitute for professional medical or mental health care.
Views expressed here are our own. If you're in need of support, we encourage you to reach out to a licensed professional.
Your mental health matters. Talk to you next time.